Hey everybody, Stuff I Heard podcast. I'm your host, Josh Peak. Ready? And good morning, and how are you? Nice to meet you. Thanks for coming along on this fun little podcast I've got in my so-called cedar slab studios of my house. Glad to have you guys aboard. This is episode 148 on October 9th, 2019. Today's Wednesday, and yeah, how about it? There's a lot of things going on right now in the news. A lot of stuff about Trump, the Democrats are trying to impeach Trump, which I don't know if that's a big deal or not. I honestly don't know enough about impeachment to know whether or not it's a big deal. In my lifetime, we went through a period of Bill Clinton being impeached, supposedly, but nothing happened. I mean, they said, yeah, he was impeached. Okay, so? He didn't get out of office. He was still the president. They basically just said he did a bad thing. And then he just kept being the president. I mean, nothing really happened. And it seems like ever since Trump was elected, everybody who's in control of media seems so against him that they're trying to polarize people, viewers, listeners, whether it's radio or television, to be just against him. And from that, there's these crazy spin-off groups of social extremities, I guess you'd call it, who are very polarizing with each other, and they very much push against each other. They are quick to say things like them and they and the others and stuff like that. And it's very sad to watch. I sort of have a optimistic belief on life. I believe that people try to be better. People want to do better. People want to treat each other well. And I may be an idiot for thinking that way, but that's how I was taught to treat people. That's how I was taught by my mom, by my grandparents. You know, you treat people well and expect to be treated the same, but ultimately, treat your neighbor as thyself. So there's some buzz in the news about Dallas Cowboys versus the Packers game, and they were in Dallas. And the camera showed in the crowd that George W. Bush was sitting with his wife Laura, and right beside them was Ellen DeGeneres, and I'm guessing Portia de Grassi was next to her. And there was a big thing about, oh my God, she's an out gay woman, she's Democrat, she's, lesbian, she's blah, blah, blah. Different than the guy she's sitting next to, straight, heterosexual male, president, ex-president of the United States, Republican. And it's almost like people were like, hey, they're not in our camp. Why are you sitting next to the person not in our camp? And you seem to be having a good time. Why are you having a good time? You're betraying your people. Very polarizing in people's comments. And Ellen was graceful, as she always is. She just commented back and said, we're just people, and we can be friends even if we have different political views. And that's a lesson for people. That's a lesson that people need to hear. It's okay to have different opinions than the person that sits next to you. It's okay to talk about it. It's okay to even still be friends, even though you have a difference of opinion. She is an example. She's showing people the example. Her and the president both are showing the example. And I say the president because even if they're the ex-president, they're still called Mr. President. They're still showing the example of you can still be friends with people who believe differently than you. And it's okay. Listen, if I had an opportunity to sit next to George W. Bush, I think that'd be pretty fantastic. I think he'd be a good conversationalist. I don't agree with everything he did while he was in office. I don't agree with any president of what they did while they were in office. And if anybody out there is that way, you really need to question whether or not your political allegiance trumps your ability to think on a level playing field, or if you're just a zealot who follows people. I mean, that's sort of an internal question. Are you someone with blind faith who toes the political line, no matter what the consequences. I mean, let's take this to the extreme, okay? Let's think about it this way. Let's think, because I don't want to use Hitler and the Nazis as an example. Let's instead think of it in terms of Star Wars, okay? Let's say you're working for the Empire because you believe, hey, we're trying to do a good thing here. It seems easier if we just have one government. So I'm going to work for the Empire. Oh, look, I got a job working on this big star out here. It's called the Death Star, and I don't necessarily want to do it, but hey, it's a good job. It comes with benefits. I get to take care of my kids. Whatever. As long as I'm on it, then there seems to be peace, because we're part of this big war machine that at least intimidates people enough that they don't want to rise up. But then there's this resistance. And you got a job working for these people, but you sort of look at this resistance and you think, yeah, I kind of like what they're doing. I mean, I kind of believe what they're doing. But I still have this job. Like, I'm still supposed to do this job. And my heart's not really in it, but, my kid's got this ear infection, and, my wife needs her blood pressure medicine. I got to keep my benefits, man. I'll build the new laser doohickey. I'll go along with it. And you buy into it. You're supposed to be that guy. You're supposed to be the guy that wears the hat and the uniform. And you're on this thing, and you're like, all right, I guess I'm doing the job. Now, let's talk about Hitler, since I've already mentioned it. Let's just hypothetically say that here's this guy who believed in something, and he was a very charismatic speaker, and he talked to a lot of people and joined his little party. And they went out and did some awful things. Now, there were some people within that group who really believed they were doing good work. I know that's terrible to say. That's terrible to even think of, especially considering the horrible genocide that they created. But there were some people who really believed they were doing the right thing. Now, as charismatic as he is, there is the idea that this dude, this Adolf Hitler guy, probably had a best friend. He probably had somebody that he liked to hang out with. They probably really enjoyed some inside jokes with each other about things that had nothing to do with the government, or nothing to do with genocide or Jews. And he was probably a nice guy to his best friend. They're probably buddies. Even during the horrible stuff, maybe this best friend was like, dude, why do you do that? Why? Like, I enjoy hanging out with you, but you got this weird way of thinking that I just don't quite jive with. Or maybe he's on board with it. I don't know. But my point is, I guess I have to have a point of this, right? My point is that even in all the chaos, there's still a person inside of there who says, here's some things I want to do. And even the people closest to them may think, I'm not on board 100% with this. And I think that's one of the things that's so interesting right now about Trump being our president, is he is so polarizing as a character. I mean, and to me, this is a character that he's portraying on television. He's such a character of what he thinks a president's supposed to be, and so absolute in everything that he says that I'm going to do this, and he doesn't back down from it. And people who voted for him were like, hey, listen, I like some of the things you're saying, but some of this is a little crazy. Because you're not going to find anybody out there in the world that you believe 100% of what they say, or think they're going to follow up with 100% of what they say. Someone's out there like, I believe everybody should get free money, and I believe everybody out there should get free health care. And okay, so I'm talking about Bernie Sanders supporters. I believe everybody out there should get more money for their paychecks and blah, blah, blah. Okay, where's that money coming from? Like, if you're responsible about your money, you've got to realize that money's going to come from you. It's not just free money. It's not money just laying around. And I listened to him on Joe Rogan. I listened to him talk about how he was going to figure out how to tax the most rich people to get that money, or the most rich corporations to get that money. And some of that may actually work, especially the corporation part of it. Some of that may actually work. But there's such an illusion of fantasy ideas that he has about how this is going to work that is just not practical. Companies and people will figure out how to get around it because they're greedy, because they believe in capitalism over socialism. And listen, I want to take care of people less fortunate than me, just as much as the next person. I'm like, yeah, that's terrible. We got people living on the streets. We got children that are going hungry. Yeah, that's awful. But I'm also thinking, hey, if I work this many hours, I can save up this vacation time and I can afford to go on this cool vacation. At the end of the day, whether we want to admit it or not, when we go to sleep at night, we're not thinking about other people as much as we're thinking about ourselves. I worked with a guy one time who used to tell me, he said, man, they're out to get me. They're always talking about me. They're always thinking about me. I said, no, they're not. When they go home at night, they're thinking about themselves. They stop thinking about you the minute they walk out of here. The only time they think about you is when you give them a reason to. Nobody cares, because everybody's concerned about themselves. Everything is different once it hits home. And listen, maybe I'm not so overly concerned about Trump being our president right now and worried about it and angry about it is because it doesn't affect me. I'm a white male. I have a good job. My life hasn't changed. My life hasn't changed no matter who the president has been, because it doesn't matter. God blessed me with good health and a good job and a good family in a good area. And, some of it is me, some of it is hard work, some of it is my willingness to change, my willingness to listen, my willingness to endure and to adapt. But, let's face it, I got genetically lucky to be born as a white male here in America into a good family. I got lucky to take some chances and it paid off. There's a lot of areas of my life where things could have gone very badly. I got lucky. God had some hand in that. What does that sound? Is that a helicopter? Can you guys hear that? A helicopter flying over. Interesting. But the thing about Trump is he's so polarizing that it makes everybody else a little paranoid. I voted for the guy, and even I'm looking at him talk, and I'm like, dude, just stop talking. Stop making people so angry. I don't know if it's on purpose, because maybe he's trying to send a message to the rest of the world of, you don't want to mess with us, because I'm crazy, and I got my finger on the button. I don't know. I hope that one day there's a book that comes out where he's very open and honest and introspective and says, all right, this is why I did all this. I hope that that's the case. But right now, I talk to people on a daily basis out in the public who say this guy's just so alienating as a person. I just can't even fathom the fact that he's still my president. And of course, you gotta imagine, if this is on the small scale of me being in Florence, South Carolina, then surely this is on the bigger scale if it's on the news all the time. Radio, television. Now, markets are in New York, Chicago, LA, San Francisco, Houston, Atlanta. Big cities, right? And they pretty much run broadcasting. Pretty much all the broadcasting comes from those areas. If you look at the map of the counties that voted Democrat or Republican in the last election, most of the map's red. Oops, I hit the little spring. Sorry, guys. Most of the map is red. The blue areas are the ones who control media. They're also the areas where most of the people live. There's a lot of red on that map where not many people live. It is a large landmass, but landmass is misleading. Even though it's mostly red, landmass is pretty misleading. I took a trip out west. We rented a vehicle and we drove all over the Badlands, South Dakota, Wyoming, Colorado. I think we went into North Dakota a little bit. Not many people. It's a whole lot of land. There's a lot of deer, antelope, stuff like that. Not many people. I mean, it's sort of like if you hear anything about the comparison of Australia to America, Australia is roughly the same size of America, the continental U.S., not including Alaska and Hawaii, but it's basically the same size, with basically the same population of LA County in the whole country. So there's a lot less people, a lot more land where people don't live. It's that thing of who gets to decide who governs. There's a big debate right now about electoral colleges, about whether or not they should be a thing anymore. Should we be using electoral votes? How is that calculated? How is it right? Does it matter? I don't know. I don't know the answers to those things. I'm not a political guy. But listen, I could be friends with pretty much anybody. I could talk to just about anybody. I don't know that I could hang out with Trump. I would want to ask him questions, but I don't even know if I get the real answers or if I just get him talking above me, trying to ponder himself bigger than I am. He's probably the only president in my lifetime that I think wouldn't have the ability to listen. And maybe that's what polarizes him so much. But I mean, George W. polarized a lot of people. I mean, 9/11 happened on his watch. The whole weapons of mass destruction misreported, and we went to war that hasn't stopped. I mean, this guy is very polarizing in himself. But you get the sense of talking or listening to him talk that he seems to be a pretty level guy, that he seems to be just a dude who was trying to figure out what to do and probably got some bad information and probably made some bad decisions. I mean, who of us have not made bad decisions? It's just when you're the president, it affects a lot more people. Which again is why I am voting for Tulsi Gabbard for president. She is an active duty military, reservist military. For the last 16 years, she's been on several tours to Afghanistan in war zones. She's an active congresswoman for the last 6 years for the 2nd Congressional District of Hawaii. Look her up on the internet. Tulsi Gabbard, Tulsi Gabbard. I don't know, again, I don't agree with everything she says. I don't agree with all our policies. Here's what I agree with. Someone who has served in our country as a combat medic, she served. She's very level-headed. She can have a conversation with people. She listens to people. That's the kind of president we need. Above her politics of what she says she believes about minimum wage and whatnot, she's very level-headed. She's willing to listen. I think she can bridge the lines between the houses in the Senate. I think she can actually do something positive. So look her up. I'm not even kidding. I'm going to keep talking Tulsi Gabbard until I can't anymore. Okay? So get used to that. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about stuff I heard. I listened to Joe Rogan interview Evander Holyfield. It came out just recently. And I didn't realize that Evander Holyfield was a 4-time champ, heavyweight champ. He fought in the Olympics and won the gold medal. He's a very interesting guy. You can tell he's been punched in the head a lot and that he's older now. The podcast is good. Joe is definitely a fan of Evander. And Evander is, as you listen to the podcast, a devout Christian and talks a lot about forgiveness. He forgave Mike Tyson for biting his ear. As soon as he got to the locker room, he'd already forgiven him. And he told his people, he said, I've already forgiven. And they're, how can you forgive him? He goes, he didn't bite you, he bit me. And I forgive him, so that means you have to. Evander has lived a life of a Christian. We talked about it in church about how if you're a Christian, you should live a life that other people say, how can you be this good? How can you give so much? Live a life worth people bragging about. Live a life worth people admiring. Live a life of selflessness. And he says, I'm not perfect. I've made a lot of mistakes. There was a time where I was selfish. There was a time when I did things wrong. There was a time when I thought about me more than the bigger picture. And that's human. But now he's living a life that other people go, how? How can you? And he says, because I'm a Christian. And I believe in this. I want to live a life where people ask me. And I can tell them about it. So, good for you. Good for you, buddy. Let's talk about something else that happened this past week. My wife and I, my wife more than I, are Disney fans. My wife is super into Disney to the point that she listens to several Disney podcasts, and when anything happens in Disney, right away, she wants to find out about it. I mean, immediately. And I don't know if you've heard, but they had an incident happen. They built these gondola things to transfer people from one park to another or from one hotel to another. There's these gondolas that are intertwined throughout the system that run continuously. They're continuous loading. It's supposed to alleviate some of the transportation demands that are currently on their bus and monorail system and ferry system. And it seems like it was a good idea. I've watched the Tim Tracker on YouTube. He's done some videos on it where him and his wife both rode on it, and they show you examples of what it's like. And listen, they're in the beginning stages. They're trying to figure out the bugs. So they didn't have it really open to the public when the Tim Tracker had done his. But now it's open to the public. Well, it was. Then they had an incident happen. As best I can tell, it was like October the 5th. Something happened at the Riviera Hotel Terminal where one of the Skyliner gondolas apparently got stuck moving from one line to another kind of deal. And when it got stuck, the line continuously moved and 5 of their gondolas crashed into it. No people were hurt. From what I can tell, looking up everything that I could see, there weren't any people on any of them. This happened at like 9 o'clock at night, and it just happened that nobody was on those. But the line stayed still for about 3 hours, and they had to rescue some people from the line. They had to send out the fire department to go rescue some people. And my wife listened to a podcast where she heard them talk about how the fire department was pretty upset over the fact that they didn't have enough people to help as many people as they needed to. And they had to use every person that they had on their staff, which is about 30 people. They had to use them all to try and rescue people, and they still couldn't get to everybody. And they said, this is not the way we should be doing things. We need more people, because if something were to happen that we needed firemen for, they're all busy rescuing people. We had nobody available to go put out a fire or to go save somebody in another situation. So there's a lot of questions that Disney has to answer to themselves over making this right. And they will. Listen, they spent too much money in this up to now to not get it right. And gondolas are pretty simple to figure out. They're used all over the world in all types of scenarios. And they will figure it out. But right now, the gondolas are not running because they're trying to figure out what to do. So stay tuned to that to find out more. I mean, check out the internet. And of course, if I hear something, I'll talk about it too. Now let me talk about something else. I watched a new show on Netflix. It's called Raising Dion. It's a little kid. I think he's maybe, I don't know. He looks to be about 8 years old. I'm guessing. They don't ever actually say his age. He's Dion, okay? When you watch the previews of the show, I'm not going to give anything away. When you watch the previews of the show, you can see that this kid somehow has superpowers. Like you don't quite know in the video whether or not he gets them at a certain stage or if he's born with them, but in the previews you realize Michael B. Jordan plays his dad, and something happened to his dad. We don't know what, but his mom, this actress, Alicia Wainwright, his mom basically is raising him by herself, and she has the boy's godfather, which was Michael B. Jordan's best friend, is Jason Ritter, John Ritter's son. Lots of good acting in this show. The mom is basically trying to figure out how to raise her son, who apparently has superpowers. And the kid, it starts off small and it gets bigger and bigger, and they don't know anything, and they're not sure who to trust, and they're not sure how to handle this, and it's an interesting idea for a show, especially nowadays when you have, Marvel Comic Universe and superhero type shows, that they take this approach and they've made it in a way that there's going to be more seasons if this is popular enough. And I'm here to tell you, this is done well. The acting in it is good. The special effects are amazing. The story is really good. They didn't skimp anywhere. They actually did a great job of this show. I was riding on a truck this past week with a guy, and we were talking about it. He said he'd already watched 2 episodes, and he's like, I highly recommend it. And I was like, cool, man. I've been looking for something new, and I wasn't sure which direction to go in. It's good. It's really good. So check that out. It's called Raising Dion. I also finished Peaky Blinders season 5. There wasn't many episodes. Let's see, Raising Dion had 9 episodes. I think Peaky Blinders this last season had 6. And the one thing that I got from this past season is it is filmed incredibly well. The cinematography, the music, the slow motion shots are really impressive. The story is okay. The character development is good. I like how the story is going. There's always a need for a protagonist and an antagonist. And the interesting thing about Peaky Blinders is they're making Thomas Shelby the good guy, even though he's a bad guy, which is kind of like Sopranos had done. Sopranos was really the first show that did that. And then you had Breaking Bad, where the main guy was a bad guy, but you sort of rooted for him because he was the guy that you're following, and you sort of feel for him. You kind of understand where he's going, and it's weird that you find yourself rooting for the bad guy. Scarface was like that. Peaky Blinders is like that. Thomas Shelby, you root for him, even though he's the bad guy and he does a lot of awful things. They do something in the shows, which Marvel has kind of emulated, of showing you a bad guy that you care about. You sort of see his journey, why he becomes the bad guy. And in a weird way, you sort of root for him a little bit. You're like, come on, do the thing. We know you're going to do the thing. In Peaky Blinders, though, he comes into contact with people who are even worse than him. So you have to root for him to overcome those odds and those people. Anyway, let me reset my camera because this thing's kind of running. There we go. So let's talk also about the fact that today is Wednesday, and I'm going to see Bert Kreischer tomorrow with Kyle Hardy. Kyle, if you're listening to this, buddy, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a great time. We're going to have a lot of fun. Byron is going to be working out in the same area. You've heard Byron on this podcast before. He actually sent me a text and said, dude, I'm going to be working in Charleston while you're out there having fun. And I was like, I'll send you pictures. Sorry. You could have taken the day off, man. Come with us. It would have been fun. But anyway, it's going to be fun. Looking forward to it. We recently bought some tickets to see Jeff Dunham in March, I want to say, in Asheville, North Carolina. Again, it's one of those things where if you're looking for tickets to go see somebody, look at different websites because you can find better prices. It just depends on where you look. Don't just settle for Ticketmaster. There's some called Vivid Seats and Good Seats and SeatGeek and StubHub. There's a bunch of them out there. Just look at all of them. You're going to find something that's better than the other. I don't know how they do ticket distribution and who gets to decide what tickets to sell, but I've done this enough times here lately to know, just keep looking. Also, I've been using this app, and they're not a sponsor or anything, but I use this app on my phone, hotels.com. And listen, in the past, whenever I try to book a hotel, I've used like Travelocity or Expedia or even Orbitz, Trivago. I mean, you never really know which one to use whenever you're looking for a hotel, price. For a while there, I was just downloading all of the apps from every one of these hotel chains, and I'd go through the app to buy the ticket for the place, and they'd give you a price or whatever. But then I started using this. I don't know how I got on it, but I started using this hotels.com thing, and it's always cheaper. Like every time I go to book something, it's always cheaper. It could be $10, it could be $20, but every single time I do it, it's cheaper than before. And listen, let's say if you're going to stay at somewhere, I don't know, like a Hilton or a Holiday Inn or something like that, and you've got the point system kind of started in your thing, you can still book it through this hotels.com, and then when you check into the hotel, be like, hey, can I link my account to get the points? Oh yeah, absolutely. Got you all looked up. Thanks. They also have their own point system, so if you stay so many nights that you book through them, you also can earn a free night. So just a little pro tip. I'm not getting anything from them. I'm not, I'm just saying that's what I'm using right now, and it seems to work really well. So check that out. I got a lot of Two Bears, One Cave listened to. I listened to 3 of them. I got behind, so I had to kind of burn through them. And the Sober October podcast, I don't know if anybody's listened to it or not, but there is a moment listening to it where you realize that Ari Shaffir had done a podcast with Bert, and he dosed him with Molly. He didn't tell Bert he was going to do it. He just put Molly in his drink, and it was really a dick move. And I don't encourage anybody to do it. I listened to Joe Rogan interview Nikki Glaser, and they talked about it a little bit on the podcast, and Nikki was she was like, that's not cool. And then she was like, well, I kind of want to try Molly, but I don't want to do it like knowing I do it. I kind of want him to dose me. And I thought, that's an awful thing to say. Like, really, I mean, you don't want to encourage this behavior. This is really bad. Matter of fact, on Two Bears, One Cave, they call, Tom Segura and Bert Kreischer call Dr. Drew and talk to Dr. Drew about it. He says, as a healthcare professional, I have to report him. What he did is illegal. He can go to jail. And Bert's trying to be his friend. I think Bert's trying to be Ari's friend more than Ari's trying to be his friend. I think Ari has a self-destructive and outwardly destructive behavior that is in the range of being a bully. I really think that he's bullying Bert. And I don't think he intended to harm him. But what he did was really awful. It's not cool, man. I've watched Ari's bad behavior a lot this past year. He was on Bert's Something's Burning YouTube page, or YouTube show, where they were cooking something. And in it, Ari's got hemorrhoids, and Ari pulls a thing out of his butt and puts it in Bert's face. And I thought, what a jerk. And Bert sort of allowed this. Like, a real man would have knocked him out. A real man would have been like, look, this is not cool. What you're doing is not acceptable. And I don't know if Bert just lacks self-esteem enough to tell him, but Bert's wife doesn't have any problem with it. And I don't have any problem with it. I unfollowed him on social media. I'm not going to support him. I'm not. Listen, you can call it cancel culture all you want, Ari, you brought this on yourself. Your behavior is not cool. What you did was bad. What you did was harmful. And Dr. Drew's right. What you did is illegal. Yeah, he was your friend. But you crossed a line, dude. Why would you dose your friend? They asked, I heard Christina Pazynski and Leanne Kreischer, they did a show, Sober Momtober or something like that. It was something to do on Your Mom's House podcast. And, you know, I heard Leanne ask Christina, she said, if he'd have done this to Tom, what would Tom have done? And she's like, Tom would have probably beat his ass. Well, yeah, that's what a grown man's supposed to do. In at least. Or at least said, I can't be your friend. Like, this is not acceptable. Your behavior is unacceptable. So listen, if you're out there and you're thinking about dosing your buddy, don't do it. If you're thinking about dosing anybody, don't do it. Stop being a jerk. Take some time and ask yourself, am I doing something that's going to harm my friend or the person that I love? If the answer is yes, then don't freaking do it. I'm going to continue to support Bert and Tom, but I don't have the patience to deal with Ari. I don't. I'm not a victim. I don't think Bert should be a victim. I don't think he should be cool with it. Bert talked about when he was a kid about having friends, quote unquote friends, who bullied him. And I think that Ari falls into that category. I think Bert falls back on that and thinks, oh no, it's okay, he really likes me. Does he? Because to me, he's proven that he don't like you. Some would say he actually hates you. I used to have a theory that one of the main differences between men and women is women will tell you, what was it? Women will tell you exactly what they feel, but then they'll physically do things that they don't. Whereas guys will tell you anything and they'll physically show you how they really feel. So, think about that. Because I think I'm right. And I'm probably not alone. So, alright, that's it. I'm going to wrap this up. I do want to mention the fact that I have a 2013 Dodge Ram. There's a factory recall right now on, I think it's all the way from 2008 up to current Dodge Rams, on the tailgate actuator. There's something wrong with the actuator. It's not locking properly. If you've had that problem, look at your VIN number, call your local dealership. There's probably a fix for it. It's a free fix. My vehicle is up there now. They've worked on it. They've already called me and said it's ready. So get that taken care of. You don't need to deal with it being a problem. It's definitely a design flaw, and they fixed it. So to the people who gave me a mention on YouTube talking about the recall, thank you for letting me know. You guys actually knew before I did. I didn't get my letter in the mail until probably a month after you guys had wrote me. So thank you for that. Thank you to everybody who continues to listen and share with your friends. And I do want to have more people on here. I am going to set this up to do more of them. I am currently building an Amazon wish list, I guess you'd call it, for some better equipment. And I got on eBay and bought a VCR and this little converter box so that I can convert old home videos to digital form, so that I could go through. I have 2 boxes of home videos that my dad sent me that his mom and dad had recorded or had in their possession. I watched one of the videos in this VCR that I got, and the tape is stuck. So I have to learn how to get the tape out, and I'll probably make a video about that. So, wish me luck. Stay tuned, there will be more. And as always, thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe, and share with your friends. Remember, 5 stars are the best stars. I'm going to try to give you 5 stars. I'm trying. Alright, that's it. Thanks again, everybody. Y'all take care. And as always, cue the cow.